So you're playing ModBox and notice all these great mod packs that people have made, and you're wondering, how can I create a mod myself? It's much easier than you think using the ModBox SDK. In this tutorial, we'll cover how to open the ModBox SDK, create a mod, and upload the mod to the Steam Workshop. The ModBox SDK is used to create ModBox mods. This will require basic knowledge of Unity, and if you want to add your own custom scripting, will require some knowledge of C#, but we're not going to cover that in this video. To open the ModBox SDK, go to your Steam copy of ModBox, select Tools, and double-click ModBox SDK. Open the ModBox SDK directory in Unity 3D. The first time you run this, it will take a while as it imports all the assets. Now that the SDK is up and running, we need to create a folder for our mod. We will put this under the Mods folder in Assets. I'm going to call mine My Mod. In this folder, we will include an Assets folder and an Entities folder. The Assets folder will store the original asset and any resources we want to keep for reference. In the Entities folder, we will store the entities which we will generate later. Finally, we want to provide ModBox with information about the mod. To do this, we use a mod metadata game object. For now, we will leave these parameters unchanged. Here I've put an asset I modeled in Blender into a folder and just dragged it into the project hierarchy. Drag this folder into your mod asset directory. If you're using a Unity asset, just drag that folder into the same place. Let's drag the asset into the scene view to check that everything's okay. As we can see, the materials haven't copied over properly during the import, but that's fine, we can just apply them now. To be recognized by ModBox, a game object must be converted to an entity by right-clicking and selecting Create ModBox Entity. Note that the game object must be a game object prefab, not an asset. If it is currently an asset, simply drag it into the scene window and back into the project hierarchy. Here we can specify the output directory of the entity as the entity subfolder we created earlier within our mod directory. Select Create and go to our entity subfolder. We now see our tree entity. The entity contains an entity script. Don't be intimidated by the large number of parameters. For now, we're actually not going to change any of these. However, if you want, you can hover over the parameters and read the tooltips to get more familiar. Remove the tree game object currently in the scene, and instead drag our entity into the scene view. I'm going to rotate the object so it's upright, and change its position so it's just above ground. In order for physics to work properly in ModBox, the object needs a collider. If you do not add a collider, you will receive an error. Let's add one. Here we are using a mesh collider and setting it to convex, as this improves performance. Non-convex colliders collide exactly where the mesh is, but are more performance intensive. If you need to use non-convex meshes, make sure in the entity script to check Always Kinematic. This means we know it won't be using physics and so will improve performance. Let's apply our changes to the prefab and disable the object in the scene view. Let's start up ModBox and see what we've got so far. Press play on the scene. To enable the mod, go to the mods page. Here we should be able to see My Mod. Click Enable. Now, on the item menu, we can see our tree object under the MISC category. It doesn't have an icon at the moment, so we'll have to look into that. Here you can see the tree is a bit big, so we'll have to reduce the scale of it. We don't really want our entity to be in the MISC category, so we're going to open up the entity script of the object and change its category to vegetation, as this seems like the most appropriate category. Next we want to generate an icon for our entity. To do this, we want to go to Scenes, Entity Texture Camera Scene. Next, click on the Take Entity Screen game object. Find our entity object and drag it into the Entities variable of the Take Entity Screen script. Play the scene. You should see it generates an entity icon and automatically applies it to your prefab. You can see that it's automatically applied by looking in the entity script under Entity Icon, Sprite Icon. Go back to the test scene, select our tree entity, and change the default scale to something smaller. I'm going for 0.4. Apply our changes, and disable the game object. Let's run the scene again. Let's enable the mod again, and open our menu. Our entity should now be under the vegetation category and have its own icon. It's also smaller now. That's much better. We can resize it, rotate it, and do anything that we can do with other ModBox entities. The mod is pretty much now ready to go onto the Steam workshop. To do this, you want to go to your mod folder and the mod metadata game object. Here we want to set a few things. We're going to specify a description so people know what your mod is. We're going to specify a mod icon, which for now we're going to set as the tree icon we generated earlier. We're going to specify a mod type. We're going to have this as entity. We can also specify the mod visibility, which will determine who can see the mod and download it. Now we're going to select build mod and upload to workshop. After a short amount of time, you should be taken to the workshop page and you should be able to see your uploaded mod on the workshop. In future videos, I'll be looking at various other types of entities you can create for ModBox. For more information about the SDK, see the ModBox SDK documentation. There'll be a link in the description.